sign it. He's
If
like,
you really
whatever.
want to understand it better, you go back. There's a VeggieTales episode about this.
Oh yeah,
That's a really catchy song.
right.
It explains it. Yeah.
That's fun.
If
But
they
anyway,
don't obey, any citizen
we're gonna sing
will be thrown into the lion's den.
We are Saints in the South, your source for gospel growth and good times. All right, welcome everyone. Episode 143. This week we are in Daniel chapters 1 through 6.
Yes.
Who doesn't know about Daniel, man?
Man, Daniel, hey, one of the greatest parts of the Old Testament. Let's just be honest.
Yeah,
it's ranking up there pretty high.
And evidently there's something to being a servant and being able to interpret dreams and visions and then moving up the ladder.
Hey, man, you know, I mean, Daniel was he was like the right-hand man to like what, 5 kings or something. It's unreal. And so he did it though, in a way he never compromised. He never let them have the upper hand on his beliefs. He stayed true to who he was and what he believed, and yet he continued to advance. He continued to go up in rank. Even when other kings from other kingdoms took over power, they kept him in power.
Right.
I'd never looked. I got so excited about Daniel, like, because I was like, what in the this man was another level. I mean, that is amazing that he was able to do that. And this other kingdom didn't just come and kill him. Like, I don't need you anymore. No, they kept him. Why? Because he was a smart guy.
Right.
He stood his ground. He wasn't a yes man. He was not a yes man. And I think every king that he served saw that quality in him. I think that's a major good quality. Doesn't mean you're defiant. It just means that you stand your ground on your beliefs and you're a solid person. You know that you're somebody you can trust. I mean, they can trust, you know, so
that, you know, he wasn't, you know, he didn't choose to
go to Babylon.
To go to Babylon. That's right. Yeah.
He was captive.
He was captive. He was specifically selected to go and fulfill that role. Right. Where he started out, and I'm sure his character and the way he presented himself and carried himself, right. They saw that, right. And I mean, they were trying to select the best to be their servants. You know, and so
the way I look at it is and I hate to use this, this comparison of Hitler's youth, but in a way, Nebuchadnezzar gathered up the Jewish kids that he saw some kind of spark in, something that you know, that he liked about their characteristics and the way that they this is the way they were, and he wanted to mold these children after his regime. I don't know what you want to call it. You know, it sounds maybe not as drastic as the Hitler Youth thing, but it's in that same sort of vein. I believe that was sort of Nebuchadnezzar's. He wanted to take the captives, but he wanted to also build his empire and put his philosophies and his leadership into these kids. And so, yeah, it was Daniel that we know of and his 3 friends, basically, which become Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego. That's not their name. Daniel's not his name either. I don't believe. I believe it was or Daniel was his name, and they gave him another name, and just like they gave Shadrach. But anyway, there's these 4 kids basically that were taken and were
so Daniel actually. Yeah. Daniel was his Hebrew name. That's what's something that's interesting, is that Daniel, they all 4 were given new names, but for some reason we know Daniel by his Hebrew name, but we don't know the other 3 by their Hebrew names. We know them by the new names they were given, which were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego.
Yep,
which are some cool names.
Yeah, and we're some cool dudes.
Indeed, they are.
I like the fact that, and I'm still talking about this in an encompassing way because there's the individual chapters, individual things, but I just like the fact that each of these men were individuals. It's not like one just rode the coattails of another. They were just outstanding young men, members of the church, whatever you want to call it. That their integrity was beyond compare for a lot of people. You know, it was amazing. let me just say that, when they could have easily not been, because they were taken out of a place that maybe they were accustomed to growing up that way, because it's almost like saying, I'm grown up in the church, I'm around, you know, all church members all the time, or whatever you want to call it. I know it's a little different back then with the, you know, but it feels like they were taught right. They were around all other probably like-minded people, mostly probably. And then they're ripped from that and put into a place where, hey, here's worldly stuff. And yet they still stayed true. And so amazing people here.
Yeah, there's really something to be said. And I've seen it in my life personally, when you have standards, and when people don't necessarily agree with those standards, but they respect you for those standards. And they say it, they demonstrate it in the way they act around you. I mean, I remember growing up and being in junior high and stuff, and you know, when it was really cool to start cussing and everything. I remember in literally 6th grade, okay, right. 6th grade, first time having lockers and everything, and this girl comes up, she's right next to me, and she's like just cussing up a storm. I'm like, and I look at her, I said, what are you doing? She's like, what are you talking about? I said, why are you cussing? She's like, we're in 6th grade. You're supposed to.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
it's all right.
No, you're not. Yeah. You don't have to cuss, you know? And, so I developed a reputation for not cussing. Right. And then when people were around me and they like, oh no, you know, Jackson's here. We can't cuss.
Right.
You know, I mean, and that started in junior high and, you know, middle school or what have you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, you got to stand your ground.
I feel the same way I feel around you now.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. Me and Kenny, we pick at you all the time.
Yeah,
but
that's right. Hey, listen, now,
we try to tone it down when we're around you. We really.
Hey, real quick, listen. Here's another little random podcast is best Latter-day Saint cuss words, like freak, God. You know, or
frick,
fetch,
yeah,
you know. Or,
dang fetch, oh my heck.
Marcus, have you been hearing a lot of that?
What?
From your return missionary?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, no. You know what?
Really?
He does, yeah, actually.
It's funny. Jacob came back saying all kinds of weird things. I've never heard him say before.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
What the fetch? Yeah. What the fetch?
Yeah, that is one. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the fetch?
No, he's just back to his regular cuss words. So
okay.
I'm just kidding. No. But yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Anyway,
that stuff rubs off, and I guess that's the point I'm making. It does rub off when you're in a different environment, and so yet it did not on these guys. They were stalwart. Yeah, the first thing we got, you know, is just the whole word of wisdom thing, which I think is great. You know, it says he wouldn't eat the king's meat, which probably, you know, it means that it's just any food that was considered possibly unholy, you know, for the Jewish community, maybe the animals with hooved feet, and, you know, there's many things, there's certain traditions and things, maybe even that the king, I think I read this in the Institute manual, something about the, how sometimes they make sacrifices to different idols, and then that food is then eaten, you know, and so that would make it unholy. So anyway, there's something there, the reason why Daniel would not eat this meat. And I would suggest that it was probably all of his, probably Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego as well probably did not partake of it. I'm sure they got a reputation pretty quick. They stood out pretty quick, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And this is kind of a miracle too that happens, because you kind of blew my mind a while ago, Marcus, when you were talking to, you know, that made the Hitler Youth compare, because it really, it
kind of felt that way. Yeah,
because it is. I mean, that's what Adolf Hitler was trying to create, like basically a master race. He got these young children, and like he indoctrinated them into, you know, the Nazi mindset, and they were supposed to be experts at everything. They were supposed to be highly educated, super healthy. They had the best health care. They had they learned how to shoot, how to fight, all these kind of things. This is what Nebuchadnezzar was doing. Basically, he was picking out the kids, you know, the Jewish children that showed promise, and feeding them the best foods and giving them the best health care and the best education and all these things, and training them up in his ideologies,
right? Just
the same way that Hitler was doing. And so it is very similar. And what's interesting to me here is that obviously the diet, the food that he was feeding them was for what they knew at the time to be the most nutritious, the stuff that was supposed to make them strong and healthy. And Daniel was like, no, just give me the pulse, which is basically just like a some kind of a meal,
like grains
type bread thing or something.
Yeah.
And water. And this guy, it's funny to me because he's like, dude, you don't understand. Like, my head's going to roll. If you reject the stuff that the king is feeding you, you don't know how bad this is going to be. Like, you're literally putting my life on the line here. Like, and he was not cool with it, but he convinced him. And here's what's really cool is he issued the challenge, and he had some faith. Now, Daniel had some faith because he's like, tell you what, your majesty, like, just try it for 10 days and then come back and look at our faces and see how we look and see if we don't look more healthy. And so that doesn't make sense because, you're going from eating like a full diet of all these rich, like all the different vitamins and minerals and the rich meats and the this and that and the other to nothing but basically a strict, like a vegan diet, basically, just like bread and water, literally. So by all accounts, after 10 days of these guys eating nothing but bread and water, they should have been pale and sickly. But on the contrary, at the end of 10 days, even Nebuchadnezzar was like, man, y'all look healthy.
Y'all
look good, man. Y'all look
good.
Can we not see this alludes to the faith of Daniel when he says 10 days? I mean, 3 months. Give me 3 months. I mean, 10 days.
Right.
That dude's got some faith. 10 days. I can change my diet for 10 days, and I'm probably gonna look pretty similar after 10 days. 2 months, maybe. Yeah, here we go. I mean, it's starting to change, but you know what I mean?
He's talking about you're going to see a noticeable difference in the way we look
our
within 10 days. That's crazy.
And here's the thing I read in the Institute manual. It says pulse is such seeds as grains and peas, wheat, barley, and rye. So like you're saying, Kenny, kind of a vegan diet, really, certainly meat more sparingly, as we know today. He wouldn't have been eating meat all the time as they were doing, which was genuinely, like you said, Nebuchadnezzar, that was genuinely, he thought that's the best of the best. Who doesn't want good meat? I mean, but anyway, it says, though eating pulse surely would have contributed to the good health of the Jewish youths, they were also blessed by God for adhering to his laws and thus became more healthy than those who ate the king's meat. So just because they were obeying the commandment too, the Lord blessed them more to be more healthy. So that's part of it too. That made me think of the word of wisdom a little bit more deeply of, it's not necessarily because I'm eating more broccoli that I'm healthier, but maybe it's because I'm trying to obey the Lord more also, so there's a little bit of both there. Yeah. There's a little bit of both there. So that, the obedience to God not only blesses us spiritually, but physically. We see that with our 98-year-old prophet. I mean, come on.
For real.
I mean, my goodness, he's literally probably better health than me. I bet if they put his heart against my heart, they'd be like, okay, this one dude's going to die. The 44-year-old's
talking about you.
Yeah. The 44-year-old's about to die. The 98-year-old, I mean, he'd probably go another 20 years.
Listen, hey, if that's the case, man, we
got
to fix that.
So
I've got a gym right over here, son.
I know.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Comparing hearts over here with the hearts.
Could probably beat me in a fist fight right now.
I guarantee I don't want to do it. Yeah.
That dude's, he is sprightly, man. He's got energy.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to fight that old man.
Hey, he's not old. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, he's old.
He's old. He's real old.
When he made the announcement that he's been alive longer than half of the existence of the restored church.
Yes.
More than half of the existence of the restored church. Like, in other words, what I'm saying, this church has been around, 200 and I can't do the math right now, but 222 years or 202. Yeah. 200. Anyway, somewhere in there. But he's half of that, more than half of that. No, it's less than that, right? Yeah,
it's less than 200 now because
2030 will be 200 years.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. So yeah, he's more than half of that. He's been around 98 years. That's wow.
Yeah.
And sits on the edge of his seat ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Anyway.
And then, verse 13, I'll read that really quick. That's really what I was just talking about. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So that's he had some faith, man. He just issued a challenge. He threw down the gauntlet to Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
And what blows my mind even more is these are kids, basically. Like David, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego were just like teenagers. They weren't like 40-year-old men who were established and were like, all right, listen here, king, I'm going to tell you what's up. It's like they had a lot of faith. Daniel had an immense faith to be like, okay, tell you what, give me 10 days. And then look at our faces, and then look at the faces of all the other ones that are eating the meat, and then you make the call.
It reminds me of Elijah. Remember when he challenged the prophets of Baal, and he was like,
yes.
I mean, this is Daniel, man. Daniel's throwing down as a youngster.
I thought of the stripling warriors and being so young and their faith and willingness to put themselves out there.
And we know the reason they were faithful because their mothers, basically their parents, taught them.
Right.
And so we got to assume at least that they were taught by their parents or whoever their guardians were.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, had to be, unless the Lord just really, truly set them apart to just be a good person. I don't know, so it's just amazing to me, the integrity of these young men.
Yeah.
And the faith. So we're in the dream now.
Yep.
In chapter 2.
Give it to me.
Nebuchadnezzar had a wild dream, and he got all of his wizards and soothsayers and all of his fancy sorcerers and people to try to interpret the dream for him, and nobody could do it. Nobody could give him a explanation for the dream that was able to satisfy him. And so then, Daniel, Daniel basically told him the dream. He didn't even sit Daniel down and say, listen, here's what happened in my dream. Daniel's like, okay, you had a dream. Here's what happened in your dream, and here's what it means. And he's, blown away at this point. Like, what are you talking about? And so once again, Daniel's faith has given him superhuman ability.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I love this out of the Institute manual. In verse 17 and 18, I'll just read that. Actually, it's 17 through 19. I won't read it all. All I'll say is this. It says, so Daniel finds out the king is going to kill all the wise men, which includes Daniel at this point. I think he got some favoritism from the king because he did show the king that, you can be healthier by eating this, which that's what Nebuchadnezzar truly wanted. He wanted his people healthy. He wanted those youth healthy. And so he gained a little favor with the king because of that. And so now he's sort of considered a wise man at this point, one of his wise men, Daniel. And so now he's finding out that this dream's had, like you said, and nobody can interpret it. So what does the king say? I'm going to kill all the wise men if y'all can't help me out. In other words, you're no good to me. You're not true wise men if you can't interpret this dream. And so now Daniel's a little bit on alert here. I don't think not just for himself, because I don't think Daniel considered himself as much as those around him, which is actually said in verse 18. He goes and he prays with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego. Actually, it's Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That's who they were.
Their actual Hebrew names. Yeah.
But he went to them and said, hey, this is what's going on. Let's pray to the Lord right now for help to know what that dream means, so that we can not just save me, but to save all these other, quote unquote, wise men, all these other people. He wanted to make sure nobody died, and so he prayed. And this is a profound statement that I love. Daniel and his companions preserved their lives by obtaining revelation from God. So through revelation, they were saved. By searching out revelation, they were saved physically, but of course spiritually as well, but physically. And so that's the power of revelation, man. Revelation doesn't just save us.
Right. It's a mic drop.
It saves us physically as well. That's how powerful revelation is. So I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. And that makes me think of, again, President Nelson's thoughts and about in order to survive spiritually, right, we're going to have to learn how to follow the promptings of the Spirit and receive that personal revelation for sure. So, Now what was it, just one dream, or did he have
it was one?
It was just one dream?
It was one.
Okay.
In a nutshell, if you want me to say, it was basically a statue of a man. The head was gold, and correct me if I go wrong here because I can't remember all the materials, but the head was gold. The upper chest was like was it silver, maybe, in a different type of metal. And then you got down to the belly, and the torso down low was like another brass or something. Then it got to the legs, which were iron or something, and then it got to the feet, which were a mixture of iron and clay.
Yeah, his legs were iron, his feet were iron, part iron and part clay. So and each section of the body represented the different kingdoms that would follow.
Rise
up. One kingdom after the other. The great kingdom, and then going down toward the feet. And then the feet, it's really cool because the 2 feet are symbolic too of the which kingdom was it that was the split? So it's
it was the Romans, or it's the yeah, I know what you're talking about. There was one that was
that when the final split, when it was, when that part of the world was divided up into like the European countries or whatever.
Yes, it's something to do with that. Yeah. It's basically like you're saying, every kingdom, every major kingdom. I had the question, why did Nebuchadnezzar have this dream? We sometimes want to throw this back to Daniel and be like, well, Daniel received this revelation, but why was it given to Nebuchadnezzar? Why couldn't the Lord just go straight to Daniel and say, this is what I need you to know? Because I think it's because that Nebuchadnezzar is trying to build up one of these kingdoms. Actually, as a matter of fact, Daniel tells him the head of gold is his kingdom of that statue. So, but what, and so the Lord, and so of course, this is a more powerful way of getting this, Daniel could have easily just showed up and said, hey, the Lord gave me this dream. This is what I had, and I need to tell you this. Well, Nebuchadnezzar's probably gonna be like, what are you talking about, man? Get out of my face. Well, this is more powerful because Nebuchadnezzar saw this and he knew it was significant. And so the stone is the other kingdom that comes out of the mountain without hands, cut out of the mountain without hands, and it rolls forth. It won't be stopped. And it actually smashes down this whole statue. So it destroys all those kingdoms. Basically, in a nutshell, I'll say this, Nebuchadnezzar needed to know that his kingdom was temporary and that he's putting too much focus on trying to be all powerful in the wrong ways. It's not going to last the way that you're going. You're trying to create something that's not going to last. This is a temporary worldly kingdom, and it isn't going to last. You need to be looking for a more powerful kingdom, a more lasting kingdom, which is the kingdom of God, which is that stone that comes out. And it wasn't cut with hands because we know it wasn't. This kingdom we're talking about
by the hand of man. Yes,
exactly. And this kingdom we're talking about is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's what we're talking about. And because it was not cut out, you're right, it wasn't made by man. It was God put it back on the earth and had prophets, and everything was through, heavenly messengers come back through, all these things. And anyway, so that's in a nutshell what it is that he had to tell Nebuchadnezzar. Interestingly enough, even though Nebuchadnezzar is an idol worshiper and he believes in many gods, he actually says this. He says at the very end of chapter 2, he says, then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshiped Daniel and commanded that they should offer oblation and sweet odors to him, gifts or whatever. The king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldst reveal this secret. He had a spiritual experience there, King Nebuchadnezzar did, which tells me you don't have to be a member of the church with a gift of the Holy Ghost to have a spiritual experience. You can be anybody. You can be a terrible person and you can have a spiritual experience. You can have the whispers of the Spirit come to you. And this is what's happening. He recognized truth. But what's so strange, and we see later, is that he does go right back to, worshiping idols and making a big golden calf or whatever it was to worship and all kind of stuff. So it's interesting that just because we have that spiritual thing, we also need to remember that's not enough. We need to keep working at it and keep going with those things. But a lot of stuff's happening in these chapters, man. A lot of gospel stuff.
Yeah, there's if you look up, there's a lot of great quotes and everything in the Institute manual. About this revelation from Spencer W. Kimball, Orson Pratt, and everything. If you got some time, check out the Institute manual. We got a lot of good stuff.
The problem with Nebuchadnezzar is he wanted to keep his as much of himself as he could in Babylon. You know, what's the thing? You know, you got a vacation home in Babylon. You know,
that's right. Yeah,
he couldn't shake that. He couldn't get away from that lavish lifestyle that he had, not knowing that kingdom was fixing to be. I mean, within days. I mean, the way that I understand it, it wasn't very far away. It was fixing to be destroyed like overnight, which is amazing because Babylon is such a powerful, huge, powerful kingdom, and it actually gets destroyed like within a day. I mean, literally, there's historians that have talked about how that happened, and it's very interesting. But anyway,
yeah, I do want to share the Brigham Young quote. The Lord God Almighty has set up a kingdom that will sway the scepter of power and authority over all the kingdom of the world and will never be destroyed. It is the kingdom that Daniel saw and wrote of. It may be considered treason to say that the kingdom which that prophet foretold is actually set up, that we cannot help, but we know it is so, and call upon the nations to believe our testimony. The kingdom will continue to increase, to grow, to spread, and prosper more and more. Every time its enemies undertake to overthrow it, it will become more extensive and powerful. Instead of its decreasing, it will continue to increase. It will spread the more, become more wonderful and conspicuous to the nations until it fills the whole earth.
I love the word conspicuous.
Right.
That's so cool how you said that, because that's really what it's intriguing. It's a little intriguing. Like, what, you guys are kind of weird, man. Like, what, well, you know,
and that's why eventually we will have Christendom looking to the church.
Yeah.
We really will.
You know what Brigham Young is alluding to here, which is very controversial to say. It's basically the government of the church will rule the world. And that sounds very, it's a little scary to say something like that's, you know, Brigham Young, he was pretty fiery, but in reality, it's true. But now, having said that, when we say the Church of Jesus Christ, it's Jesus Christ. It's not, you know, it's not, I was going to say Gordon B. Hinckley. It's not Russell Nelson. It's not Jeffrey R. Holland's going to be the guy that goes in and takes over these countries. No, it's the Jesus Christ will govern the earth one day.
That's right. Yeah.
His will be he will be the governor of the world, the president, the king, whatever you want to call it, of the world.
Yeah.
So
that's what, the structure of the church is all that is establishing the structure that will be in place when Jesus returns.
I think
will be his kingdom, the structure of his kingdom. Yeah.
It's important. Who can do the article of faith? We believe in being subject to kings,
priests, presidents, rulers.
So we want to make sure that we're not saying that we don't regard any laws and that we do what we want. Right. No, that's not how Jesus Christ would want that. That's not the way it's supposed to be. But there will be a time when his laws will absolutely be the only laws that we follow. You know, and of course they're going to be the most righteous and the best laws that there can be, because it's Jesus Christ, you know. So, but yeah, that can be a controversial type discussion because it may sound this or that, and may even cause some, you know, rub the wrong way of other people, whatever religions or whatever. But it's what we believe, and it's all because it's Jesus Christ. We believe he will be the ruler of the world. So
yeah, and I had a conversation with a very, very intelligent person one time that said something that really kind of blew me away.
Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was Marcus.
Oh,
during that, it said during that time that the other churches will still exist.
Yes.
And I was like,
other faith.
What?
Yes.
Because in my head, I'm thinking, oh yeah, all this other stuff's going to go away, and there's only going to be Jesus Christ and his church. But no, it's like, so there will be people still have agency. There still will be other Christian churches.
Look,
there will be Christian churches that will reject Christ even.
Yeah. And when it says that only righteous people will be left on the earth during the second coming, it never says only members of the Church of Jesus Christ will be left in the second. No, just righteous people. People that believe in Jesus Christ, people that believe in a higher power that is Jesus Christ, people that are good-hearted people that will genuinely accept Jesus Christ when they hear it. Those people will be left. Those people are good people. And so, that's, you know, and like I said, that's a whole nother.
And unfortunately, members of the church, some of them
won't make it.
Some of those people.
It's true.
Yeah, well, they won't make it. There'll be some of the first that won't make it, probably, because they know, you know, they got more knowledge. But
let's talk about Meshach, Shadrach, and Abed-nego.
Awesome dudes.
Yeah. So chapter 3, that's moving into the cool story that we all know about, the humongoid statue that Nebuchadnezzar built. That was 60 cubits, which is 90 feet tall.
Wow,
that's big, man.
Humongous.
What's Statue of Liberty? 130 feet. It's pretty close. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Let's Google it
just
right
to
now.
get into context, because which I've never seen the Statue of Liberty in person, but
hey Siri, how tall is the Statue of Liberty?
305 feet.
Oh, 300
is 305 feet tall.
Okay, so I know what we can.
Though.
I know
counting the base. The base is a big part of the height. The statue itself is not that tall.
A fire tower is 100 feet tall. We've all seen a fire tower.
Okay,
so that's pretty tall.
So we're basically thinking of a statue, a golden statue that's almost as tall as a fire tower.
Yeah,
so those of us in the South, we've seen fire towers. We know how tall they are.
They have to be up.
They tower over the trees.
Yeah,
and they have to be that tall in order to be able to get above the tree line for to be able to watch for fires. So that's incredibly tall. That's an immensely humongous statue.
So it puts it into context, Kenny. This was not a small ceremony. This was something that was being planned for a long. It had to take a while to build this thing. And there was probably a huge unveiling and probably just a massive thing. I mean, just the immense pressure that had to be felt upon Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego, as we're talking about now, to maybe just sort of stay low, man. And let's just go along with this thing for a minute. I mean, man, I don't know. That's crazy. I mean,
we've all been teenagers before, and the pressure to conform, especially, I mean, even as adults, but especially when you're younger,
right?
Man, there's if you feel like people are looking at you like you're weird at all, it's really hard.
Right.
It's not, so I can't even imagine the amount of stress that would have been on them to be able to stand up to this and be the only people in the whole kingdom that were like not doing what they're supposed to do. And it's crazy. The faithfulness of those guys is just mind blowing, but it shows, that if we have faith, the Lord will look out for us.
Yeah. So everybody was expected to kneel and worship this statue, right?
When the music
automatically
played,
automatically. Yes. Right. Yeah. When the big,
this was
when people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, which is fun to say, psaltery, and all kinds of music. All the people, all the nations, all the languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up.
Yeah, this was as common as eating lunch. I mean,
whenever you hear the sackbut, you fall to your knees and worship the giant statue.
Yeah, it was just a part of the day. Yeah, the sackbut. I bet that was probably a bass.
That's not a good name for a bass. I'm gonna start
for those
calling
that don't know, Kenny
sackbut.
Plays bass. So anyway,
let me get my sackbut.
It's in his bio. Check out his bio.
Yeah. Hey, but let me say this. Verse 14 goes right along with it. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, because somebody told him, hey, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego is not doing this, king. And see, they were already set up as high council in the king's court. Also, the king had noticed them, and they're up there now. They got some clout, But of course, they're getting told on by the other people and say they're not doing what you told them to do. Right. And so Nebuchadnezzar spoke to him, and he said, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up?" And so here's my thing. I wonder if they said to him, back to the king, because what an opportunity. I know if it had been me, I probably would have, because I'm always some kind of quick comeback. I wonder if they said, have you already forgotten when Daniel interpreted your dream and you confessed, king, that God, our God, is truly the God of gods? That's his words. So how am I going to worship this God if you already said my God is the God of gods? Does not that make sense, O king? Right. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure there might have been some back and forth there, which is probably why was going to get thrown in the furnace, because they might have made a fool out of him. But anyway, I just thought it was very interesting. I don't know how much time passed between this. It could have been years. I don't know, but has he already forgotten that fast? Good grief, man.
We are quick to forget. That's for sure.
Yes.
So I want to read verses 17 and 18. This to me,
these are
in my opinion, this sums up the whole lesson for this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If it be so, Our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But this is, ooh, man, this gets me. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's we could, I mean, those two verses to me, that could be the whole. That's the whole gospel right there. Like, we have faith in God. I mean, hey, I'm not going to do this thing, and God's going to deliver me from it. But if not, so be it.
So be it. That's right.
Yeah. You know, so be it. That's what I mean. That's just, man, that, you know, that kind of faith is like, he's like, you know, yeah, if God wants to, he can save us from this. But if he doesn't,
if not,
then we'll die, and we'll die knowing that we did not submit to this thing.
You're talking about wheels. You're talking about wheels, WILLS, aligning. You're aligning your will with God's will at that point. They were dead on the same page. If the Lord says we're saved, we're saved. If he don't, then he don't. And that's his will. That's our will. That's the way it goes. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yep. It reminds me of Jesus's prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yes.
But
I be will that this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done.
Yes.
Right. I love that we have a contrasting story, though, in the Book of Mormon. Alma and Amulek.
Oh, yeah.
And the people being thrown into the furnace. And Amulek says to Alma, let's save them, right? We can save them. We have the power to save them. And Alma says, basically, the spirit constrains me not to.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very interesting. It goes back to this right here, Kenny, what you said, verse 18. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods. And that's the situation that the Nephites found themselves in there.
Well, what about Abed-nego? Abed-nego, same thing. He said the same thing. He said, if it's so be, I don't know what the Lord's going to do with me, but whatever he does basically is what he's going to do. And it did happen. He did die. He did.
Well, and so did those other people as well.
Yeah, right.
They weren't saved.
So yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It really does. It really is up to the Lord. It just because you're doing such a righteous, wonderful thing doesn't mean that you're saved physically. We're never guaranteed physical safety. We're just not. We're just not guaranteed that. We didn't come to this life with that guarantee. That infants die. People. Several people I know have died in their teens. We don't know when we're going to pass away or become maimed or whatever. We literally have no control over that. We can do the best we can, but things outside of our outside of our power can happen. And so that's why the Lord is so focused throughout the scriptures isn't really on the physical things. It's always the spiritual. That's the only thing we really truly can control. That's the only thing we really can truly build up and strengthen and make sure that we have. I might not make it another 2 years, but my spirituality can be as strong as it can be in that time. And that's up to me, to do that. And so that's what's so interesting about, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego had that down pat. They knew that perfectly. They couldn't have cared less. What are you going to do, my body? Okay, fine. I mean, that's taken care of 100% by Jesus Christ. I'm going to be resurrected and be glorified. I'm not worried about that part. Yeah. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about my spirituality. If I decide to worship this idol, then I'm really dead. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the real bad thing here. And that's the thing the king didn't get, but they had down perfectly. So, man, there's so much stuff in these chapters right here in Daniel. If all we had was the book of Daniel out of the Old Testament, we'd be in good shape. I mean, and I'm not, that's my opinion now. Believe me, that's my opinion. But there's so much depth to these chapters, man. There's so much going on that really relates. It to me, Daniel feels like a character out of the Book of Mormon. Does that make sense to y'all? It feels like something that is just so relatable. And what I mean by that is it seems like the Book of Mormon was written for our day, and it just really feels like Daniel was written for our day. I mean, it all is, but you know what I'm saying? It's just something special about Daniel, man. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego, of course. Very cool stuff, man.
Yeah. So in this case, though, they were saved, and saved from the fire that was so hot, literally it killed the dudes that were throwing them into the furnace.
Hotter than the furnace has ever been.
Remember into the furnace.
Remember they said they made it hotter than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they said they made that was the hottest the furnace. Apparently, he had this furnace for killing people? I don't know. Whatever it was made for, but it was the hottest
once again, it's
Hitler, a Hitler thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
That just goes to show Satan plays some of the same cards, man.
Complex machinery, some complex things to kill people with. Yeah. But so when the Lord did choose to save them in this case, and in verse 28, we see why. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God.
Very good.
Yeah, and he made a decree from that point that the next verse, he goes so far in the next verse to say, any person that speaks against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego shall be cut up into pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort.
Yeah.
Why
there's no other God that can do this. So if you say anything negative about this God, their God, you talk trash about him, we're going to cut you into little pieces.
Yeah.
Turn your house into a dunghill. Whatever exactly that means.
Yeah.
It sounds bad though.
It's amazing the influence. Daniel and these three men, and I need to clarify that actually Shadrach, Meshach, and Abed-nego became higher up in the courts of the king after this incident. That was, I said it before, that they were already high up in the courts, but now they are. Now he promotes them to a leadership type position. But anyway, it's just amazing to me the influence they've got on the king. All these, and it's because of the Lord. It's because they're following the Lord. And Daniel says as much, back when he said who helped him interpret the dream, it wasn't him. It was the Lord helped him interpret that dream. He always gives the credit where credit's due. Any good leader does that. Any good leader doesn't take that for themselves. They never want to. I mean, some leaders do come up with great things on their own. I mean, they do have great things that comes from them, and then other people copy that. But he lets people know that, hey, Jesus Christ is the reason these things are happening, the reason that we're protected, the reason that we're healthy, the reason that we are smart, whatever it is, And so Nebuchadnezzar's taking notes. He's getting it. His heart is being softened. I think about also in the Book of Mormon when Lamoni, the king, his heart became softened as he saw Ammon out there serving him every day. It's just, these are great missionaries, man. I mean, they're doing, the Lord he qualifies everybody. I'll just say that. The Lord qualifies whatever our missions are, and he's qualifying these four men right now to do some good work. Obviously in the end, Nebuchadnezzar he really just doesn't come around like he should. He's just keeping that foot literally in Babylon. But
then chapter 4 is the other. I think that's what you were talking about, Jackson. There's another dream that he interprets in chapter.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he turns around and basically he just doesn't quite. As a matter of fact, I mean, Daniel tells him he's going to be destroyed.
Right? Yeah, that's because Daniel was hesitant. He walks in and
he didn't want to.
He sees it. He's hesitant. He says, "Go ahead and speak freely."
That's cool.
Well, here it is.
And his reaction's really good. He was kind of like, "Hey, give this guy some gifts." I mean, Daniel. I mean, it was very interesting to me. Did you read in the Institute Manual, Jackson, about that?
Yeah.
I don't have it with me. I don't know if you can read it. You know what I'm talking about, where it said that possibly the reason Nebuchadnezzar adorned him with gifts and sort of praised him when he was told such a horrible thing that he was going to be destroyed. I can't remember. It's something to do with that, perhaps. Do you see it? Oh, it's verse 29.
29, yeah. So why was Daniel rewarded by the king when he prophesied of the king's destruction? So based on verse 29 of chapter 5, it says, although Belshazzar did not believe that Daniel's God was the only true God, it is likely that he, like other heathens, believed in the gods and in revelations from God. He must have been deeply impressed with Daniel's ability to interpret the writing on the wall, because he rewarded him handsomely. Keel and Delich suggested another possible reason. Belshazzar perhaps scarcely believed the threatened judgment from God to be so near as it actually was, and perhaps he hoped to be able, by conferring honor upon Daniel, to appease the wrath of God.
Yeah, so he wanted to be like, let me give you some gifts, and maybe the Lord will turn a blind eye to me.
Yeah, so basically, he's doing some blackmail and negotiating or something. Saying, listen,
well,
God,
I think sometimes we want to levy, we want to sometimes maybe do, and I've heard this, especially as a youth. It was always like, well, if I do these good things, my bad things are canceled out. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what you see Belshazzar trying to do here. Oh,
yeah, he's like, hey, Daniel, here, enjoy this gold necklace. And by the way, why don't you put in a good word for me with your God?
Exactly. Trying to buy off the Lord, basically. I mean, let's just be honest. What's so interesting is that he actually died. Like he's destroyed like within days, I think. It wouldn't anyway. He didn't realize it was that close that he was going to get destroyed. That was the other thing. He thought, well, maybe I got some time anyway. You know, I'm sure I'm not going to get destroyed tomorrow. I mean, I am the leader of the most powerful entity in the world, right? You know, in his mind. You know, so anyway,
and that same night he was slain, and Darius, the Median king, took the kingdom.
Darius, I mean, the last thing in verse 6 or chapter 6, Darius takes over this. Huh? Yeah, chapter 6. Darius takes over.
Yeah, just saying, chapter 6.
He's the leader of the what is it? Who took over the Persians? I think the Persians took over. Yeah.
The Midian.
Yeah, I think that
Midian.
Oh, okay. The Medes and Persia.
Medes and Persians.
Yeah. So anyway, they took over. Babylon's gone. They took over. The way I understand it, historians try to say there's no way Babylon was destroyed in a day, but it actually was. The historians see that there was tunnels under the city where the water had went down, and so all these Persians and all the enemy went through the tunnels and was like in the city overnight, and they just took over. And so it did happen like within a day. It's just, you know, part of that prophecy. But anyway, let's see. It's just interesting. I think the last thing that I wanted to say was just that I don't want to get, there is a lot of stuff here, but we ain't really got time. I wish I could. Okay.
People just got to study on their own.
Yeah, we got to study on. We can't tell y'all everything.
The very last thing, though, it's funny to me how once again the Lord proves it, and now Darius makes a decree that everybody needs to honor Daniel's God. Daniel's God is the best.
Right.
That's funny.
Well, and so Darius, he was the one that signed the decree, but it was kind of like unbeknownst to him. It was kind of like tricked on him a little bit. He didn't really know what he was signing. Am I reading that right? It's basically where that when you pray, this is when he was cast into the lion's den. This is why, and Darius, the king, did not like this. He was like, no, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Basically like I did not want Daniel in the lion's den, but somehow he was tricked. I think maybe put that down in the comments if people know better than us. He was sort of tricked into signing this decree to make it like basically prayer, make it illegal to pray, or whatever. And so that's how they got Daniel.
Made him sign a decree that anybody that
prayed in public
God will be thrown into the lion's den.
And so Darius really didn't I don't think he really was thinking about it when he'd signed it. He's
if
like,
you
whatever.
really want to understand it better, you go back. There's a Veggie Tales episode about this.
Oh yeah.
That's a really catchy song.
Right.
It explains it. Yeah.
That's fun.
But anyway, obey any citizen,
we're gonna sing
will be thrown into the lion's den.
Oh man. You can play that on a sack butt. Anyway, or whatever it's called. Daniel does go to the lion's den. He gets put in there. Darius won't even sleep all night. He's scared to death. He's worried about him. But Daniel told him, the Lord will take care of me and this and that and whatever. And so anyway, so we know the story. Daniel, of course, wasn't eaten in the lion's den. The Lord protected him, sent an angel to shut the mouths of the lions, et cetera, et cetera. There's a beautiful, beautiful painting in the Orlando temple in the men's dressing room of Daniel in the lion's den. Oh my goodness. It blows my mind every time I see it. Anyway, that's a side note thing. That's a side note thing. But anyway, so basically what happens is Darius is super happy. Like, yay, I'm so glad you made it. I didn't want you to die. I'm so sorry that this happened. And so what do? They go get the men that created this law, this made up law, and they get their wives and their children and they throw them all in the lion's den. And which I thought, wow, that's pretty harsh, man. Yeah. Pretty harsh. But one of the reasons is that possibly those children would have been indoctrinated with the wrong things. They would have caused more problems in the future with the things against God and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. So there's just reasons why the Lord obviously we talked about this before, about how the Lord allows agency and things to happen like that. And the punishment has to fit the crime. And, of course, today that's pretty harsh, probably. It depends on, I guess, what country you're in, but in America, it definitely wouldn't happen. They definitely probably would have grabbed these men up and done some kind of punishment to them for making up a false law and trying to get someone killed and et cetera. But to throw their wives and children in there, I don't know. That's just crazy for today. But anyway, the Lord has reasons for all these things. So anyway, the last thing that I'll say, just to end out my part, in verse 28 of chapter 6, it says, so this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So Cyrus takes over, the king of Persia. He's also his assistant. And the thing that it says, lastly, it says Daniel prospered. It says he had served 5 kings, Nebuchadnezzar. I can't name this next one. Evil Merodach or something. It's a hyphenated word. Look it up. Belshazzar, Darius, and Cyrus. So he served all these kings. Few courtiers, Courtiers, I'm not sure what that is. Few of them have had so long a reign, served so many masters without flattering any, been more successful in their management of public affairs, been so useful to the states where they were in office, or have been more owned of God, or have left such an example to posterity than Daniel. Just an amazing man. Amazing for him to hold those under non-believing kings. He changed the hearts of some of them. Even Cyrus, was not Cyrus the one that released the Jews to go back to their land to repair the temple? I believe that he was the king. I believe that was the king. Perhaps Daniel had a very big influence on that to get, and that's right. How that worked. And Daniel had some major influence on these kings, man. May not have ever converted anybody, maybe none of these kings were ever baptized, or what I mean. I'm baptized shouldn't be in quotation. That's an actual thing. But what I'm saying, they weren't actually, that wasn't the success that they were baptized. It was the success that he shared the gospel. He opened his mouth. Those lions' mouths were closed, but Daniel's was not.
Yeah. But basically the book of Daniel is faith in action.
Yes.
I mean, that's
absolutely.
That's what it is. I mean, it's several stories of just faith in action.
Man, what a guy.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Men. I mean,
all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, we will close it out right there. And until next time, y'all keep on striving. All right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to follow us on social media, you can do that through Instagram and Facebook at Saints in the South. A great place to join in the discussion would be our podcast group page on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter, Saints in the South, at 5 Southern Saints. And then, of course, on YouTube, hit the like button, notification bell. And if you're not already, be sure and subscribe. And then finally, you can check us out through our website, saintsinthesouth.com. Where you can have access to all the podcast and YouTube videos. And then we would love for you to take the opportunity and leave us a review and rating. Thanks again for all of your support, and we will see you next time.